Have you ever noticed that some people become completely different after success? The humble man becomes arrogant. The dreamer becomes ruthless. The passionate creator becomes emotionally cold. The person who once valued friendship begins valuing status. And the terrifying part is, most of them don't even realize it's happening. At first, ambition feels beautiful, innocent. You tell yourself, I just want a better life. I just want to matter. I just want to escape suffering. But somewhere along the journey, the pursuit begins changing the person chasing it. Because success does not merely change a person's lifestyle, it changes their psychology, their morality, their identity, their relationships, their perception of other people. Some of the greatest thinkers in history warned us about this transformation long before modern society understood it. Friedrich Nietzsche called it the will to power, the dangerous hunger not merely to survive, but to rise above others. Carl Jung believed success awakens the hidden shadow inside human beings. Arthur Schopenhauer warned that desire never truly ends. And Niccolò Machiavelli understood something terrifying. The higher people rise, the more morality becomes negotiable. Tonight, we're going to explore the hidden psychology of success, why ambition changes people, why power corrupts identity, and why some people finally achieve everything they wanted, only to realize they no longer recognize who they became to get there. Welcome to the conscious chamber. Most people think ambition is always a good thing. Society worships ambitious people. We praise obsession, relentless work, sacrifice, competition, domination, and extreme achievement. The world tells you be hungry, outwork everybody, never settle, become extraordinary. But very few people stop to ask a darker question. What happens when ambition stops being a tool and becomes a psychological addiction? Because ambition has a strange ability to slowly consume the identity of the person chasing it. At first, you control the ambition. Then eventually, the ambition begins controlling you. This is what Machiavelli understood better than most people. Machiavelli observed that power changes morality itself. At the bottom of society, people speak confidently about honesty, loyalty, principles, and kindness. But the closer people move toward power, the more survival begins replacing morality. Because power introduces temptation. The temptation to believe if the result benefits me, the method no longer matters. And you can see this transformation everywhere in real life. A struggling person values relationships. Then they become successful, and suddenly people become useful connections. Friendships become strategic. Conversations become transactional. Trust begins disappearing. Why? Because success changes the environment around a person. The more powerful someone becomes, the less they know who genuinely loves them.
And to the algorithms that got us here.
And who merely loves access to their success. This is why many highly successful people become emotionally guarded. Not because they were born cold, but because power slowly teaches suspicion. And over time, that suspicion changes personality. Then Nietzsche takes us even deeper. Nietzsche believed human beings are driven by something darker than happiness. He called it the will to power, the deep desire to rise, dominate, matter, overcome, and become superior. Modern society feeds this instinct constantly. Social media turned human ambition into a global competition. Now people no longer simply want success. They want visible success. Public success, admired success, envied success. People are no longer asking, am I fulfilled? They are asking, how do I compare to everybody else? And this creates psychological poison. Because comparison destroys peace. The ambitious mind becomes trapped in endless measurement. Who has more money? More followers? More influence? More beauty? More status? More power? And slowly, life stops becoming an experience. It becomes a scoreboard. This is where ambition begins mutating into ego. The person no longer wants growth. They want superiority. And superiority is psychologically addictive. Because once the human ego tastes significance, it wants more. More recognition, more admiration, more dominance. more validation. This is why some people become unbearable after success. Success inflated something that was already inside them. Carl Jung warned about this exact transformation. Jung believed every human being carries a hidden unconscious self called the shadow, the part capable of narcissism, manipulation, vanity, cruelty, domination, and selfishness. Most people think success creates arrogance. Jung believed something more disturbing. Success removes limitations, and when limitations disappear, the hidden personality emerges. A poor person may appear humble because life forced humility upon them. But when power arrives, the real character surfaces. This is why some people completely transform after success. The kindness disappears, empathy decreases, criticism becomes intolerable, validation becomes addictive, and slowly, they begin worshipping their own image. Jung warned that many people eventually become trapped inside what he called the persona, a public identity constructed for admiration. Social media has amplified this psychological trap to terrifying levels. Now people carefully construct digital identities designed to appear successful, attractive, intelligent, wealthy, powerful, and desirable. And eventually, some people become so obsessed with maintaining the image, they lose connection with who they actually are. This is one of the greatest psychological tragedies of modern ambition. People stop building a meaningful life and start performing one. Thorstein Veblen saw this coming long before Instagram existed. Veblen discovered that human beings often use status symbols as psychological signaling devices. People buy expensive things not merely for utility, but to communicate importance, superiority, and value. This is why modern consumer culture is deeply psychological. Luxury brands do not merely sell products. They sell identity, status, exclusivity, recognition. And the dangerous part is that many people unconsciously begin measuring self-worth through external symbols. The car, the clothes, the lifestyle, the audience, the salary, the attention. Suddenly, identity becomes performance. People stop asking, "Who am I?" and start asking, "How am I perceived?" But beneath this endless pursuit of status often hides something much deeper, something Sigmund Freud understood. Freud believed many human ambitions are rooted in unconscious emotional wounds. Some people are not chasing greatness. They are chasing emotional compensation. The ignored child wants recognition. The rejected person wants admiration. The powerless person wants control. The insecure person wants superiority. And this explains why achievement often fails to produce inner peace. Because success cannot heal unresolved psychological emptiness. A person may become rich and still feel inadequate. They may become famous and still feel unloved. They may become powerful and still feel deeply insecure. Because internal wounds do not disappear simply because external success appears. And this is where ambition becomes dangerous. The person begins believing, the next achievement will finally make me feel complete. But it never lasts. Schopenhauer believed this was one of the deepest tragedies of human existence. He argued that human beings are trapped in endless desire. The moment one goal is achieved, another appears, and another, and another. The mind constantly whispers more success, more status, more money, more influence, more power. And because desire never ends, the ambitious person often becomes psychologically trapped in permanent dissatisfaction. This is why some highly successful people are secretly miserable. They achieved everything they once prayed for, yet still feel restless, still anxious, still incomplete, because ambition promised fulfillment, but delivered dependency. Modern culture rarely talks about this. Society celebrates achievement endlessly without asking what it costs. Psychologically, sleep disappears. Relationships weaken, peace fades, authenticity erodes, and eventually, the person becomes emotionally disconnected from ordinary human life. Alfred Adler believed much ambition is driven by inferiority compensation. People who once felt weak, invisible, rejected, or powerless often develop intense ambition as psychological armor. Success becomes emotional protection, a way to escape feelings of inadequacy. And this explains why some ambitious people become obsessed with proving themselves not because they love achievement, but because they fear insignificance. Their identity becomes dependent on winning, on succeeding, on staying ahead, and this creates constant psychological pressure. Because once identity becomes attached to achievement, failure no longer feels like an event, it feels like death. Then comes the final transformation, the one Michel Foucault warned about. Power changes relationships themselves. The more successful people become, the more difficult authentic human connection becomes. Because power changes how people treat you, how people speak to you, and how people approach you. Admiration becomes difficult to trust. Loyalty becomes uncertain. Relationships become complicated by status. And slowly, successful people begin isolating themselves emotionally. This is why many powerful individuals become guarded, suspicious, detached, and lonely. And perhaps this is the darkest side of success nobody prepares people for. The loneliness at the top. Because ambition often requires sacrifice. And sometimes, people sacrifice so much chasing greatness that by the time they finally achieve it, they realize they lost peace, authenticity, relationships, emotional connection, and parts of themselves along the way. This is the tragedy of becoming what you chased. The person spends years saying, "One day I'll become successful," without realizing that success itself may slowly reconstruct their personality. And maybe the deepest question is not, how do I become successful? Maybe the deeper question is, what kind of human being will success turn me into? Because ambition is powerful. It can build extraordinary things. It can create greatness, innovation, discipline, and transformation. But without self-awareness, ambition can also consume the soul of the person chasing it. And perhaps that is why so many people who appear successful externally feel empty internally. Because achievement without inner stability becomes psychological imprisonment. You keep chasing without ever arriving. And in the end, many people discover something terrifying. They conquered the world, but lost themselves in the process. And that is the dark side of success.